My family used to laugh at me for taking what they called a dead-end job. "You'll never make any real money," they said with smirks. I didn't argue, I just smiled, stood up, and walked away. But last night, they saw me on national TV, and the shock on their faces? Priceless. They looked like they'd seen a ghost. I can still picture the way they used to laugh at me. My dad, leaning back in his chair at the dinner table, shaking his head like I was some clueless kid with no grasp of how the real world worked. My mom tried to hide her grin behind a glass of wine, but I saw it. Then there was Derek, my older brother, the golden boy. He'd followed their blueprint to the letter: business degree, cushy office job, sleek company car. He always looked at me like I was the family embarrassment. "You really think that's a career?" my dad asked me once, setting his fork down like he was doing me a favor by pretending to be patient. "You'll be flat broke by 30. I didn't argue with him. I didn't try to plead my case or explain. I just smiled. Because, truth be told, I knew they'd never take me seriously. They never believed in what I was chasing. So I left not just the dinner table, but the whole thing. Their house, their opinions, their carefully laid out version of how life was supposed to go. That same night, I packed everything I owned into my beat-up car, filled the trunk to the brim, and drove off without a clue where I was headed. I didn't have a roadmap, just this gut feeling that I needed to get away. The first few weeks felt like breathing for the first time in years. No more side eyes across the table. No more sarcastic comments about how I was throwing my future away. It was just me, my car, and a head full of stubborn dreams. But reality doesn't wait long to come knocking. I had no safety cushion, no rich parents to bail me out, no family backing me up. I found myself in a rundown studio apartment with barely enough room to stretch my legs. The mattress sat right on the floor, and the faucet in the bathroom wouldn't stop leaking. My bank account was bleeding out faster than I'd expected, and I had to count every dollar just to make rent and eat. Then the failures started rolling in. That first job I landed in my field? Gone in a couple of months. The company downsized, and I was the first name on the chopping block. The next gig? It barely paid enough to cover gas. I only called home one time. Just once. And not to ask for money, never that. I think I just wanted to hear a familiar voice. My mom answered. Before I could even say anything, she let out this long sigh and said, "So, are you finally ready to come home and get a real job?" I didn't even respond. I just hung up. No. I wasn't going back. I was determined to prove them all wrong. There's a point in every struggle where doubt starts to creep in. You start wondering if maybe they were right after all. For me, that moment hit hard one cold night in November. I was sitting alone in my car, too broke to pay the heating bill in my apartment. The dream I'd been chasing felt more like a joke. No wins, no breaks, just one closed door after another. That month alone, I worked 3 different part-time jobs. Early mornings at a coffee shop, graveyard shifts as a security guard, and bits of freelance work that barely kept the fridge stocked. I was drained, mentally, physically, all of it. Then came the gut punch. An opportunity I'd been pouring everything into suddenly vanished. I was sure that gig was going to be my big break. But at 10:42 p.m., the rejection email came through. Cold, impersonal. My hands trembled as I stared at my phone. I sat there, thinking, is this it? Did I throw my whole life away? For a moment, I almost reached for the phone again. I thought about calling my folks. Thought about telling them they were right. Maybe take that office job they always wanted me to have. But then I remembered the way they laughed. The way they'd looked at me like I was nothing. No. That wasn't how my story was going to end. So I pulled myself together, opened my laptop, and got back to work. If no one was going to open a door for me, I'd build my own. That night, I made myself a promise. I wasn't just going to survive, I was going to succeed. But man, success didn't come easy. It took years. I failed, again and again. For every one shot I took, 10 more missed the mark. Every time I felt like I was getting somewhere, something knocked me back down. There were days when I had to skip meals. Nights when I laid awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was just being foolish. But I kept showing up. Kept grinding. Kept learning from every stumble. I took the jobs nobody else wanted just to get experience. Worked for free sometimes just to build connections. Slept less, worked more, kept improving wherever I could. And then, little by little, the tide started to turn. It started with a gig I almost didn't take, just a small-time thing. But that job led to another one, then another. One of the folks I worked with passed my name along, and before I knew it, people started noticing what I was doing. It wasn't some overnight fairy tale. I didn't wake up rich or see my name in lights. But the progress was real. I was building something. And back home? My family never once checked in. Not a text. Not a call. They posted about Derek's big promotions, my cousin's weddings, their fancy trips to Europe. Me? Still the black sheep in their eyes. And honestly, that was fine. For the first time, I didn't care what they thought. Because I had something better, proof. Proof that I'd been right to believe in myself. Success doesn't hit all at once. It creeps up on you. One day, you're barely scraping by. The next, you look around and realize you made it. For me, that moment came with a phone call. It was from a producer. Someone I'd met years earlier when I was still hustling for scraps. I'd all but forgotten about them. But they remembered me. They had seen my latest work and wanted to feature me, not just a side mention, but a full national television segment. An interview. A spotlight I'd been chasing for what felt like forever. I sat there, listening, barely breathing, as they explained the details. When the call ended, I just stared at the screen. All those years, all that pain, every time I doubted myself, it had led to this. I could still hear my family's laughter in the back of my mind. But now? The world was about to know my name. A few weeks later, the interview aired. I didn't tell my family. I didn't call, didn't send a message. They'd made it crystal clear a long time ago, they didn't care what I was doing. And now? I didn't need their approval. But fate's got a funny way of making things come full circle. That same night, while my parents were probably kicking back in their living room, flipping through channels like they always did, there I was right on their TV screen. Not in the background. Not some tiny footnote. Front and center. I spoke with a calm confidence I'd earned the hard way. I shared my story, my journey, the grind, the failures, and everything it took to get to that seat. The host praised me like I was the next big thing. Called me a rising star. My name flashed bold across the screen like it belonged there. And even though I couldn't see their reactions, I could picture them clear as day. My brother probably sinking a little lower into the couch, suddenly fidgety. My mom pressing her lips together, eyes narrowing, not sure how to process what she was seeing. And my dad? I bet for once in his life, he didn't have a single thing to say. I wasn't there to witness it, but I didn't need to be. Because the truth is, they weren't even on my mind anymore. I'd already let go. The night the interview aired, my phone didn't make a sound. Not a ring. Not a single buzz. No call from my mom. No text from my dad. Nothing from my brother. Silence across the board. And honestly? I wasn't shocked. They'd spent years telling me I'd never make it. That my dreams were a waste of time. That I was wasting my potential. So now that I'd made it, what were they supposed to say? Sorry we laughed in your face? Guess we were wrong all along? Of course not. They chose silence. And silence, sometimes, says more than words ever could. But a few days later, I did get a message. Not from them. From my cousin Jessica. She was always one of the few in the family who didn't treat me like a screw-up. Hey, saw you on TV. That was incredible. You must be so proud of yourself. Congrats, you really deserve it. I stared at her message for a bit, smiled, then replied thanks, Jess. That means a lot. Then she sent a second message, and this one hit different. By the way, I was at Mom and Dad's the night it aired. Your parents saw it too. You should have seen their faces. I smirked. Couldn't help it. Oh yeah? I typed back. Pale. Silent. Like they'd just seen a ghost. I could picture the whole scene, my dad gripping the armrest like the remote betrayed him. My mom frozen, jaw tight. My brother suddenly real quiet as my name lit up the screen. They'd spent so many years looking down on me, making jokes at my expense. Now the world was clapping. And they couldn't take that away from me. But even with all that satisfaction, I wasn't dwelling on them anymore. I'd spent too long trying to earn their approval. Too many years wishing they'd believe in me. And now that I'd done what they said I never could, I finally realized I never needed their belief. Or their approval. Or anything else from them. This victory? It was mine. Every hard-earned bit of it. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly free. For a while, I figured that was it. I wasn't looking to rehash old wounds. I'd moved on. I wasn't about to go back and force a conversation they'd never wanted to have when it actually mattered. My success came without them. And that, more than anything, felt like the sweetest kind of closure. But my family? Yeah, they weren't done just yet. The first message came from my mom. "Hey honey. We saw you on TV. You looked great. So proud of you." Proud. That word sat in my throat like a stone. Where was that pride when I was struggling to make rent? Where was it when I was losing sleep, second-guessing myself, wondering if I'd made a huge mistake? I didn't respond. Then came my dad's message. Shorter. Even more tone-deaf. "We should talk." Talk? About what? The years he spent mocking me? The times he laughed when I told him I had a dream worth chasing? I left that one on read too. A few days passed. Nothing. Then, like clockwork, my brother gave it a shot with a whole new tone. "Man, you're really blowing up. Saw your feature last night. That's crazy. Listen, I know we've had our differences, but maybe we should catch up. Let's grab dinner sometime, my treat." My treat. I almost laughed. The same guy who once called me delusional was now acting like we were old buddies looking to reconnect. Like the past never happened. I put my phone down and took a long, slow breath. They weren't reaching out because they missed me. Not because they were sorry. They were reaching out because I was somebody now. Because my name had weight. Because the spotlight I fought tooth and nail for had finally landed on me and they wanted a piece of it. They weren't trying to make amends. They were trying to rewrite the story. Pretend they'd always been supportive. Like they'd been in my corner from day one. But I wasn't about to let them do that. Then, a week later, my phone rang. It was my mom. And for some reason, I picked up. Curiosity, maybe. Or just wanting to hear what kind of script she'd come up with. "Honey," she said, her voice soft and warm, like none of it ever happened. "It's been too long. How are you?" I leaned back in my chair and looked out at the skyline from my apartment window. A high-rise view I'd earned by myself, no handouts, no shortcuts. "I'm good, Mom," I said, calm and even. "What's up?" She hesitated. I could hear the wheels turning. "Well, your father and I were thinking, we should all get together sometime. Have a nice family dinner. Celebrate your success." There it was. Now that I was successful, now I was worth their time. I smiled to myself, but it wasn't a warm kind of smile. "You want to celebrate?" I asked slowly. "Of course," she said. I took a breath. "Mom, do you remember the last family dinner we had?" Silence. "Because I do," I said. "It was the night Dad told me I'd be broke before I turned 30. The night you both laughed when I told you I was following my dreams. The night Derek called me an idiot. Honey, that was so long ago." "Not long enough?" She exhaled, her voice turning gentle. "Look, we were just trying to protect you. We didn't want to see you struggle." I let out a low chuckle. "You didn't protect me, Mom. You dismissed me. You mocked me. You pushed me away when I needed you most." She started to say something, but I cut her off. "I don't need a dinner. I don't need your congratulations. I don't need anything from you." There was a long pause. And then, softly, barely above a whisper, she said, "That's not fair." I clenched my jaw. Fair? Where was fair when I was freezing in a tiny apartment, eating ramen for dinner, wondering how I was gonna make rent? Where was fair when they cut me off, left me to struggle, just waiting for the chance to say I told you so the moment I stumbled? But I didn't unload all that. I just said, "Goodbye, Mom." And I hung up. I thought I'd feel something: anger, sadness, maybe even a little guilt. But instead, I felt free. For the first time in my life, I didn't owe them anything. I didn't need to prove a damn thing. I had already won and I did it without them. After that call, I waited. Figured maybe there'd be another wave of texts, more attempts to worm their way back in. But nothing came. Just silence. And in that silence, I realized something. Without me feeding into it, without me playing the part they'd cast me in, my family had nothing left. All their opinions, their judgments, their smug little comments, it all meant nothing now. Because I'd taken back the one thing they never thought I'd pull away. My presence. I wasn't the family screw-up anymore. I wasn't the cautionary tale they passed around like gossip at the dinner table. I wasn't the pitiful older brother they could measure Derek's success against. Now I was the one people were watching. The one people were talking about. And my family? They had to sit quietly in that living room and swallow the bitter truth, they'd missed the ride, and there was no seat left for them. Months rolled by. My career kept climbing, bigger projects, better offers, doors opening left and right. And then, one night at this swanky industry gala, something happened I wasn't expecting. I was in this gorgeous hall, the kind that buzzes with money and clout. I was shaking hands with people I'd once only seen on magazine covers, when I heard someone call my name. I turned around. And there he was, Derek. Decked out in a suit, holding a drink, wearing that half-smile he used to give when he wanted something. "Man," he said with a nervous chuckle, "I gotta admit, I didn't think you'd actually make it." I raised an eyebrow. "And yet, here we are." He took a sip and nodded. "Listen, I know things were rough back then. But hey, we're family, right?" There it was. That old trick, rewrite the past, gloss it over, act like none of it ever happened. I didn't say anything. Just let him squirm a bit. "Mom and Dad talk about you a lot," he went on. "They say they want to fix things." I gave a small smile. "Funny. When I needed them, all they did was shut the door." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Come on, man. You proved them wrong. You're on top now. Can't you just let it go?" I stared at him for a long moment. Then I shook my head. "You still don't get it, do you?" He blinked. "Get what?" This was never about proving them wrong. It was about finally realizing. I don't need them. His eyes narrowed. "You think you're better than us now?" I let out a dry laugh. "No. I just finally understand my worth. And I'm not wasting another second on people who only show up when it benefits them." His face went tight, but I didn't stick around to watch him sulk. I turned and walked right back into the crowd to the people who respected me for who I'd become, not for who they remembered me as. That was the last time I ever spoke to any of them. And you know what? I never looked back. You'd think a moment like that would leave you shaken, maybe even a little hollow. But I felt nothing but peace. I had spent so many years chasing their approval, hoping one day they'd say they were proud, or that they finally saw my worth. But there, in that room, surrounded by people who actually valued me, I realized I didn't need their words anymore. Because I had built something real. Time kept moving. I traveled for work, made new friends, grew into the person I'd always wanted to be. Every once in a while, someone from back home would poke their head in, a cousin trying to act friendly, an old neighbor suddenly so proud of me. Even my mom sent an email once. "Hope you're doing well. Your father and I miss you. Maybe we can talk soon?" I stared at it for a long while. A part of me wondered, if I replied, would I finally hear the things I had waited my whole life to hear? Would they apologize? Would they finally admit how wrong they were? But then it hit me. They didn't miss me. They missed the control. They missed the version of me who still needed their validation. The moment I stopped being that guy, they didn't know what to do. So, I left it unanswered. Let it sit there in the inbox, just like they let my calls go ignored back when I needed them most. And with that, the last thread tying me to that part of my life snapped. Months later, I was in a quiet hotel room, high up in some fancy tower, staring out at the city lights. It was peaceful, still. One of those rare nights where you finally get to take it all in. I thought about those dark nights sleeping in my car. The nights I wanted to quit. The ones where I almost did. I thought about my father's laughter, my mother's cold silence, Derek's smug little smirks. And then I looked around. Successful. Respected. Fulfilled. I didn't need to rub it in. I didn't need a grand confrontation. This life, was the proof. Walking away had been the real victory. A year passed. Then 2. And I never heard from them again. Not because they forgot about me, but because deep down, they knew. They knew I was gone for good. And for once, they had nothing left to say. Years ago, I would have given anything to hear them say, "We're proud of you." But now, I'm proud of me. And that's more than enough. As for my family, they're just part of the story now. A chapter I've closed. A reminder of where I came from, but not where I'm headed. I've moved on. And I'm never looking back.